South Korea and the U.S. have materialized a joint fact sheet on the two countries' trade and security agreements, detailing Seoul's $350 billion investment in return for Washington lowering tariffs on Korean goods. And Friday's fact sheet also documents Washington's official approval for Seoul's pursuit of building nuclear-powered submarines and a push for uranium enrichment and reprocessing capabilities. Meanwhile, President Lee Jae-myung will begin a 10-day four-nation tour next Monday, including a stop in South Africa to attend the G20 summit. South Korea and the U.S. today unveiled the details of the joint fact sheet on trade and security, some 2 weeks after their leaders' talks, which President Lee Jae-myung said has allowed for a tighter Seoul-Washington alliance. Our correspondent Yoon Jung-min has our top story tonight.
President Lee Jae-myung himself announced some of the fact sheet's key points on Friday morning.
우리 경제와 안보의 최대 변수 가운데 하나였던 한미 무역 통상 협상 및 안보 협의가 최종적으로 타결됐습니다.
On the trade front, President Lee said the previously agreed upon investments worth hundreds of billions of dollars to lower the U.S. tariffs will be made in projects that are commercially reasonable.
원금 회수가 어려운 사업에 투자를 빙자한 사실상 공여가 이루어지는 것 아니냐라는 일각의 불신과 우려 또한 확실하게 불식하게 됐습니다.
He went on to say that the deal will elevate the Korea-U.S. alliance to a new level to involve cutting-edge industries like AI and semiconductors. On the security front, the allies have agreed to cooperate on South Korea building nuclear power submarines, which requires U.S. support under the current bilateral nuclear energy agreement.
우라늄 농축과 사용 후 핵연료 재처리 권한 확대에 대해서도 미국 정부의 지지를 확보하는 데 성공했습니다.
The South Korean commander-in-chief also said the two sides have reaffirmed the U.S. commitment to the presence of U.S. forces in Korea and to continued cooperation for the transition of wartime operational control from Washington to Seoul.
한미 동맹은 안보와 경제, 첨단 기술을 포괄하는 진정한 미래형 전략적 포괄 동맹으로 발전 심화하게 되었습니다.
Friday's announcement comes about 2 weeks after Lee and Trump met in Gyeongju, longer than expected, over reported differences over issues related to nuclear power submarines. As he thanked the people for their trust in the government, as well as his U.S. counterpart, Donald Trump, for his rational decision, the president commented that he found himself frustrated due to pressure at home by some over the prolonged trade talks. President Lee added it's more of a start than a final end, as each country will continue to fight to defend its own national interests, and global uncertainties will not be resolved in a short amount of time. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
And this joint document entails the details of tariff rates and investment initiatives between the two sides. That includes a memorandum of understanding on Seoul's $350 billion investment pledge. Our economic correspondent Moon Jeong reports.
The joint fact sheet highlights the key trade agreements reached between the two countries, with the U.S. lowering tariffs on South Korean-made automobiles from 25% to 15%. The document also reconfirms Washington's existing pledge that semiconductor tariffs will not disadvantage Korea compared to other nations.
On Section 232 on semiconductor tariffs, Korea secured terms effectively on par with major competitors such as Taiwan, ensuring equally favorable conditions should the U.S. strike a future deal with larger trading partners.
In return for these adjustments, the fact sheet outlines Seoul's pledge of $350 billion in investments in the U.S. Of this, $150 billion is slated for the U.S. shipbuilding sector, with another $200 billion to be allocated to strategic investments under an upcoming memorandum of understanding between the two countries. Notably, safety measures were also put in place to ensure the stability of Seoul's foreign exchange market. These include the provision that the U.S. will not demand more than $20 billion annually in investments under the MOU, and that Korea can request adjustments to the amount and timing of funds raised. Regarding non-tariff barriers, Seoul prevented any additional opening of its agriculture market for sensitive products like rice and beef. The Trade Ministry said the tariff agreement served to further solidify trust between the two nations.
Building on this agreement, both nations anticipate accelerated industrial supply chain cooperation through mutually beneficial projects under the Strategic Investment Memorandum of Understanding. Seoul also aims to further boost its industrial competitiveness and facilitate expanded market access for Korean companies in the U.S. by thoroughly preparing all necessary procedures.
On the same day, the White House also formalized the details of the trade agreement, releasing the joint fact sheet from the South Korea-U.S. summit. However, the fact sheet did not specify the effective date for lowering the current 25% tariffs on automobiles and auto parts to 15%. 문지영, Arirang News.
The Seoul-Washington fact sheet also sets in stone U.S. support of a future fleet of South Korean nuclear-powered submarines. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung has the details.
Making the joint fact sheet release public, President Lee Jae-myung announced the U.S.'s support for South Korea's plan to build nuclear-powered submarines.
이번 협상을 통해 한미 양국은 대한민국의 수십 년 수건이자 한반도 평화와 안정을 위한 필수 전략 자산인 핵 추진 잠수함 건조를 추진하기로 함께 뜻을 모았습니다.
Calling it a meaningful step in national security, he added that South Korea also secured the U.S. government's support in expanding the rights related to uranium enrichment and spent nuclear fuel reprocessing. The White House, too, released a fact sheet where it said the U.S. has given approval for South Korea to build nuclear-powered attack submarines and that it will work closely to meet requirements for this shipbuilding project, including avenues to source fuel. Eyes were on where the project was going to take place, and National Security Advisor Ri Sung-rak said discussions on the issue were conducted on the premise, from beginning to end, that it would be in Korea. Two countries reaffirmed the U.S.'s firm commitment to the stationing of the USFK and to extended deterrence. For this, South Korea agreed to provide comprehensive support worth $33 billion, about 47 trillion Korean won, and the two countries are to boost cooperation through consultation mechanisms, including the Nuclear Consultative Group. Seoul showed its will to boost military capabilities as well.
국방력 강화와 전작권 환수를 통해 한반도 방위에 대한 우리의 주도적 의지를 천명했고 미국은 이를 지지하며 지원하겠다는 의지를 강력히 피력했습니다.
For this, South Korea is to increase its defense spending to 3.5% of GDP and is to spend $25 billion on U.S. military equipment purchases by 2030. With such measures documented, the two sides aim to deepen their alliance into one that is future-oriented and strategically comprehensive. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
The South Korean and U.S. defense chiefs released a joint statement on their recently held 57th Security Consultative meeting. The two agreed that there had been significant progress in the OPCON transfer to South Korea. And to further accelerate this, they decided to come up with a roadmap to acquire essential capabilities. The two countries will pursue a verification of the second step of the process out of 3, full operational capability in 2026. Seoul and Washington further agreed to expand cooperation in shipbuilding and MRO, or maintenance, repair, and overhaul, broadening it to include U.S. combat vessels and aircraft starting next year, though specific details have yet to be decided on. On Friday, the presidential office disclosed the details of the president's upcoming diplomatic trip to the UAE, Egypt, South Africa, and Turkey, starting next Monday. Our correspondent Song Yoo-jin tells us more.
President Lee Jae-myung is set for his longest overseas trip since taking office, a 10-day four-nation tour that begins Monday.
저는 다음 주 G20 정상회의 참석자 남아프리카 공화국으로 출국합니다.
The president will attend the two-day G20 Leader Summit in South Africa, where members will discuss solidarity, equality, and sustainability.
We will make sure that the visions we set out at the APEC leaders meeting, such as creating a global AI society and promoting recovery and growth, will be discussed at the G20 as well. We will also share our fiscal and climate policies so that South Korea can help lead relevant policy discussions.
Before and after the G20 summit, Lee will visit three Middle Eastern nations, the UAE, Egypt, and Turkey. His first stop will be the United Arab Emirates for a state visit.
The UAE is our only special strategic partner in the Middle East. Through this visit, President Lee's first to the region since taking office, we plan to expand cooperation beyond the four key areas of investment, defense, nuclear power, and energy, into advanced technology, healthcare, and culture.
In Abu Dhabi, Lee will hold a summit with President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, followed by an MOU signing ceremony and lunch. The MOUs will cover areas including artificial intelligence, business cooperation, and defense. The president will also meet business leaders from both countries, as well as the Korean Special Forces stationed in the UAE. He will then travel to Egypt, marking the 30th anniversary of diplomatic ties between the two countries. Alongside a summit with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, Lee will deliver a lecture at Cairo University outlining the administration's Middle East strategy. For his last stop following the G20 summit in South Africa, President Lee will make a state visit to Turkey, where he is expected to discuss strengthening the country's strategic partnership in defense, nuclear energy, and biotechnology with President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Having wrapped up major trade and security negotiations with the United States, President Lee now turns to an extensive round of multilateral and bilateral diplomacy. His trip this time is expected to widen the scope of South Korea's pragmatic diplomacy to the global south. 송유진, Arirang News.
Also on Friday, President Lee Jae-myung has pledged to improve living conditions for residents in northern Gyeonggi-do province. At his flagship town hall meeting held in the province's Paju city on Friday, the president called for the easing of regulations and expanding government support to develop former U.S. military sites returned to South Korea, most of which are located in the region. This is a land that has been left unused after the U.S. forces Korea relocated to Pyeongtaek. He also instructed the Defense Ministry to step up efforts to accelerate the return of sites that Washington has already agreed to hand back but remain delayed due to administrative procedures. Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chul has shared unease about the foreign exchange market as the won remains weak against the U.S. dollar. Lee In-jin covers his remarks.
Addressing the recent increase of uncertainty in the foreign exchange market, Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chul has said South Korea will actively utilize all available policy tools if the situation persists where the foreign exchange supply and demand remain imbalanced. Koo made the remarks on Friday during a meeting with the chiefs of the Bank of Korea, the Financial Services Commission, and the Financial Supervisory Service. Concern was expressed over the $1 exchange rate, weakening to 1,471 on Thursday, driven by factors like overseas investment. They warned that persistent imbalances would further weaken the won, which would significantly limit the exchange rate's downward flexibility, and agreed on the need for structural improvement to the foreign exchange supply and demand. Earlier on Friday, the won to dollar exchange rate strengthened by 19 won to an intraday low of 1,455.9 won. Also on Friday, Finance Minister Koo spoke at a ceremony held at the government complex in Seoul, launching the Mid to Long-Term Strategy Committee. This advisory body to the Finance Ministry was first established in 2012, tasked with establishing national future strategies to address challenges in areas including industrial technology innovation, demographic changes, and climate change, and providing policy recommendations in relevant fields. The seventh edition of this committee will be led by former chairman of Samsung Electronics, Kwon Oh-yeon. Lee In-jin, Arirang News.
A K-pop girl group NewJeans has decided not to appeal a trial verdict confirming the validity of its exclusive contract with the ADOR agency. So the deadline for all 5 members to file an appeal was 12 a.m. on Friday, but no appeal was submitted. As a result, all members are now officially recognized as part of ADOR, bringing the group's year-long legal dispute to an end. Last month, the Seoul Central District Court's Civil Agreement Division 41 ruled in favor of ADOR, determining that exclusive contracts with all 5 members remain valid. There are many reasons to wait for Fridays, and one of them is definitely the arts and culture segment. And this week, we take a closer look at the bilateral relationship between Korea and France, marking its 140th anniversary next year. And tonight, we connect with our culture correspondent, Park Konu, joining us from France. Welcome, Konu.
Bonjour, Dami. I'm currently in Primoachon, a small village in Provence, a significant region in southern France. So it has several historical sites, and it is the place where many artists, including Van Gogh, worked and found inspiration. And not many Koreans can be seen around here, but I must say, they are so welcoming and very nice.
That's good to hear. Now, as we are just a month away from the 140th anniversary of bilateral relationships, what are some cultural exchanges taking place there?
Yeah, so there are several cultural events, especially in the art scene, that are underway to celebrate the milestone. So in France, one standout is an art exhibition called Couleur de Goethe, taking place at the Korean Cultural Center in Paris, showcasing many artworks by Korean artists, including Kim Chang-yeol and Park So-bo, renowned figures in Korean contemporary art. And then the exhibition is hosted through a collaboration among several art organizations from both countries, including the National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art Korea and Foundation Feminco. Already more than 5,000 guests have visited the exhibition so far, and the number is expected to grow as it runs through next August. Next year, at one of France's largest cultural festivals, this is really important, the festival, the Opinion, Korean has been selected as the official guest language, the first time any Asian language has received this honor. And this designation carries great significance as it will put the spotlight on Korean culture through the official invitation of Korean theater, dance, and performance works. And other than these, many more events are lined up next year to mark the milestone. And it's not just France. In Seoul, a special exhibition is underway at the Seoul Arts Center, featuring artworks by Paul Cézanne and Auguste Renoir from the Musée d'Orsay and Musée des Ollongs-Ory until late January. And it's actually the first time these works have been displayed in Korea. And to ensure their safety, the paintings were even flown in on 4 separate aircraft, showing how valuable this collaboration is. And an expert I spoke to highlighted the significance of the occasion.
I think for the museum, it's very important to show what they have. They need to bring their art to the world much more than they used to do. Because museum is you have to go there to see a museum. There is a strong centralization of art in a museum where kind of cemetery, like very dead. And so to bring piece of art outside in the world is to make them reborn.
But it's not just these events that are strengthening the bond between the two countries, as there are more to come. So an official at an art gallery based in Paris that I also met has hinted at what some of the upcoming collaborations are.
We are currently, working and organizing ourselves on how to potentially be an actor of this, particular celebration next year. Looking to collaborate with local, curators, galleries, finding ways of showing artists with Korean artists, creating bridges between cultures, between continents, bringing together different actors together through art.
It is indeed impressive that arts from Korea and France come into, effortless collaborations. And Kanu, it's not just the arts field that we are expecting collaborations. What else? Tell us more.
So while Korea has currently been dominating the world with Korean dramas and movies, and one French film director that I also met says there's a lot more potential for the two countries, can work together.
Mm-hmm.
The French embassy recently, I think they organized some meeting between young Korean filmmakers and French producers. So the way is co-productions between France and Korea. The French industry of film is very famous for very international co-productions, but very few things are made with Korea.
So he added he's also currently working with Korean cinema and expects even more projects down the road, especially as both sides are keen on preserving the traditional film industry. And meanwhile, the World AI Film Festival Seoul 2026, which originally began in Nice, will take place in Seoul next March. And awards will be given in categories including Best AI Short Film and Best AI Soundtrack as well.
I see. Kanu, now I've heard that it's not just major cities like Seoul or Paris that are seeing these cultural exchanges, correct?
That's right, and that's what exactly surprised me the most after traveling all these southern cities in France. The growing interest in Korean culture across smaller cities, I must say, in France. So thanks to Korean content, more people are learning Korean than ever before. So Korean language schools have opened across big and small cities, including Dijon, a city of just 150,000 people.
안녕하세요. 저는 구스입니다. 저는 10살 사람이에요. I already tried Korean food and I love it. But I want to experience Korean university.
27 years ago, when I first came, nobody really knew about Korea. Now, when we have a Korean food week here, it's one of the most popular events in this city. These days, thanks to K-pop and K-dramas, their pronunciation is good. Now, around 40 schools are learning Korean as either their second or third language. And last year, my fellow teachers and I wrote the first public Korean textbook for high school use.
So she added that there will be many cultural events taking place in Dijon each month next year, including the ones related to Korean food and also Korea's Confucian culture. And, Tami, overall, Korea and France plan to carry their partnership into next year, with President Macron expected to visit Korea as well, by expanding cooperation beyond culture to include science and technology, economy, education, and many more, building on the momentum created this year.
Right, a lot to look forward to between the two countries. Kanu, thanks for all of that, all the way from France.
Merci, Dami.
With the whole country generally clear today, typical late autumn weather with a large daily temperature difference continued. The sky will be mostly clear across the country tomorrow, but there is some rain forecast in center areas and Jeollabuk-do province from late afternoon on Sunday. There will be as little as 5 millimeters. A dry weather advisory is in place for the east coast of Gangwon-do province. As the atmosphere around the east coast area is very dry, please take extra precautions not to cause any wildfires. Seoul and Daegu will start off at 4 degrees Celsius tomorrow morning, with Busan at 8 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 15 to 19 degrees around the country. From next week, cold air will come down from the north and the day will get much colder. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.